Hello, Gold Patrollers. Jeff Gold for the Gold Patrol here in Maricopa County. Interesting morning in the Jodi Arias retrial of her death penalty case. We ended yesterday with the state finishing its case as to the crime. That meant that mitigation would follow today, we thought, and then eventually a rebuttal case by that state. But nevertheless, the state put in what it was calling rebuttal, but were impact statements of two of the victims' families. First, we heard in dramatic fashion from Tanisha Sorensen. You may remember her as the sister who's been here almost every single day of both trials. Long black hair, very pale skin, attractive young woman. Usually comes with her husband. She came before the jury, speaking softly at first, but quivering. And then as she began to speak more, became more emotional and more emotional. Not only quivering, but becoming angry at times, becoming emotional. Some of the jurors had wiped tears from their eyes or wiped their noses, some looking down during her impact statement. She dramatically recounted how she can't take a shower without locking the door now, how she thinks about this, how it has caused depression and ruined her lives in so many ways. Very, 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 very dramatic testimony. Some of the most dramatic testimony that I've seen in either of these two trials, especially since we haven't heard from Tanisha, although seen her every day, we haven't heard from her since before the first trial. We also heard from Stephen, brother Stephen Alexander, who we did hear from the last time, and he gave also a very emotional plea, measured at first, but then recounting nightmares that he's had about the murder, and again in almost angry fashion, recounting the impact that this has had on he and his entire family. He's separated now because of the emotional impact, he says, from his wife, and so very dramatic impact on the family, way beyond just a murder, but how a murder affects a family. And then at some point, when it was going to be the first witness, we assumed, for the defense in mitigation, the public information officer came over to the media and said that the judge wants all the media to go down into the overflow room and break down the one camera that's taking snapshots. This was, of course, objected to by the media, but nevertheless, we as sheep were being led out the courtroom. I asked whether or not this pertained to the public as well, and the court information officer said, yeah, it did. The public as well would have to go to the overflow room. So we began to leave, and as we began to be shepherded out of the courtroom, the judge motioned, and we went back in the courtroom. There was another sidebar, and then a hearing is sort of in chambers on this with the parties and the victim's family. Finally, the news media calling its lawyer, who has shown up now. The court recessed until 1 o'clock. One would think for a hearing. Hopefully, the public will be allowed to hear that, and that the media lawyer will be able to hear it as well. So that's where we are right now. We don't know who that was going to be. There was some speculation it could be Jodi. The reason why there was speculation about that is that she was speaking to Wilmot quite a bit, standing up, speaking to her. It seemed like perhaps she was getting ready to testify. Now, the issue of testimony is a very difficult one, because normally a defendant like her in a sentencing phase would just give an allocution, not a testimony. I don't know if that's really why a judge would excuse the media. There were witnesses, however, that Jodi claimed were intimidated in the first case and didn't want to testify in support of her because of the media attention. It could be that that is what the judge was thinking about. But if you ask me, I can't imagine what the difference would be between having a media go downstairs in an overflow room and still watch it, as opposed to being in the courtroom. You do that sometimes with a 5-year-old witness who's intimidated by court, talking about a sexual predator or something, but in this case I just don't understand what that's about. It may be that the judge has consulted with other judges, the presiding judge at this point. We don't know. We'll see if the media is allowed, and we'll see what the surprise is after lunch. Who's going to testify for Jodi? Jeff Gold for the Gold Patrol.